What's going on, kids? It is Dr. Remy LeBeau, and I'm coming at you once again from the X layer to provide you my very deep and insightful reaction to the latest episode of The Gifted. We had The Gifted Season 2. I believe this was episode either 8 or 9. I didn't check before I did the video, but I have to say that I've been a bit of a hater lately for this show, and that's just a normal sort of reaction to the slow pace of the show and some of the elements of the show that I didn't really love. But tonight we had an actually fantastic episode. This was a really great episode of The Gifted. Probably my favorite of the season, and maybe one of my favorite of the entire series. I guess, having the Mutant Underground divided and not really having that foundational chemistry between Polaris and Eclipse that really just was part of what made the start of the show so special and what really drew me in. Finally having that in front of us again, have that be sort of the driving force, and that was wonderful to see. And also to have Andy and his family back together again, that was wonderful to see. So it took obviously the first half of the season to allow an episode like this to happen, and I understand that you need to do that, and what's happened has happened, and I didn't hate the first half of the season, but I did have some issues with it. But this was freaking fantastic. This really shows this show has a lot of potential and can really do some great things. And ideally if the writing kind of guides it in directions like we saw today, then it can continue to be great, and I hope it will be, because this was some good stuff, right? We saw some great shows of power. We saw some great signs of character growth, and maybe some of the characters going dark, like Andy. It's an interesting journey that Andy's on, and I'm really buying it. They're taking their time with it, and they're kind of escalating the degree to which he's being radicalized within this whole crazy world that he's been sucked into simply because he's a mutant. I think they're doing a really good job of that, and the tension between him and Lorna is palpable, and it's something that I love. But I also love seeing them together, and I love seeing them use their powers together. When we saw them using their powers together today, that was it was great, because they've both refined them. It wasn't everybody was kind of just trying to still kind of figure things out and afraid to use their powers, or maybe the parents were kind of getting in the way, and maybe not allowing them to kind of grow in the way that they could grow. It's that all happened the first season, and clearly the characters have become stronger, and it showed that as a unit that they can be so great. And not just Lauren and Andy, but also the entire Mutant Underground. Which is why I really do hope that they all at least come together by the end of the season and become the Mutant Underground again, and they can face some other threat, as opposed to always having the opposing mutant factions versus the good mutants versus the humans. I would prefer there just to be mutants versus humans, at least the majority of the time. You can have an inner circle, a Magneto type of approach to fighting this war that the mutants are fighting, and I'm totally fine with that. But I want the majority of the conflict to not be between mutants, But for now, I'm comfortable with it, and I have a feeling that, this was a great episode, and this may bode really well for what's to come in the second half of the season. Hopefully, it keeps getting ratcheted up. I hope this is not a mid-season premiere sort of thing where it's let's pull out all the stops and then kind of bring it down a bit. So it's we need a build-up here. We need a build-up to a really explosive ending, and really make the season feel there's a clear-cut plan to escalate the energy, the momentum of the entire season, and making it a whole experience, right? So when we wind up going back to it and binging it, as a unified story, it feels really satisfying. Not just right now during the time that we're watching it. if they truly want us to become fans of the show, like they would want us to want to rewatch it as often as possible, you know, throughout our lives. So, you know, you got to deliver a solid experience for that. That's unified as a whole. Like, a great example is Lost. I was a huge Lost fan. I would rewatch the entire show before every season premiered. And then they had me until the very last episode. The very last episode, that's it. Like, for me, like, there was this huge, wonderful, perfect build-up to, for me, nothing. Like, nothing. And I don't want to debate Lost, so let's not get lost in that, but because of that, like, I don't feel like I have, like, a unified experience, and I haven't gone back to that show since it ended. Which is crazy, because before that, I would watch it all the time. So, like, you know, if this is gonna be, I don't know, I don't know if we're gonna be renewed. If this is gonna be the final season, I want it to be one of those things where it's like, all right, well, at least I have this great season, this great set of seasons, season 1 and 2, to, like, always go back to and watch. Like Wolverine and the X-Men. Wolverine and the X-Men is the last X-Men cartoon that aired, right? That aired about, must have been 10 years ago now. Yeah, it was about 10 years ago. And it was fantastic. Like, that was the first appearance of the Cuckoos outside of the comics. And a lot of elements, like Emma Frost and her diamond form, like a lot of really cool things that were introduced post the 90s were kind of in that show. And I don't know, if you haven't seen that show, it's a 23-episode season. I have it on Blu-ray. It's available on Blu-ray. It's available on streaming, I'm sure. Like, you should check it out, because that is a freaking fantastic show. And, like, what happened was that Disney bought Marvel. And so then they canceled all of the existing shows. Like, they canceled that one. They canceled the Spectacular Spider-Man, which was the Spider-Man cartoon that was going on at that time. And it was, like, up to season 3. And it was actually pretty fantastic. Like, I watched all the, obviously all the X-Men cartoon in the 90s, but I also watched the Spider-Man cartoon in the 90s. And that was a good show, but the quality is not that great these days. Like, the aspect ratio is not that big, and, like, obviously you can't really, you can't find it in HD in good quality. So that Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon was doing that, and it was doing it really well. It wasn't, like, silly and, like, intended for kids. It was like, no, it was like telling Spider-Man stories, and it was fantastic. Just like Wolverine and the X-Men. Spider-Man got canceled, Wolverine and the X-Men got canceled. It's kind of like right now where Daredevil and, like, all the Netflix shows are getting canceled, all the Netflix Marvel shows are getting canceled, but they're fucking fantastic. It was the same thing. And it's all due to business, right? And, like, the lack of one company owning all the licensees, etc., etc., etc. The bane of the X-Men and even Spider-Man as well. Because they were so popular in the 90s, they got sold off. If they weren't popular in the 90s, and anyway, I'm not going to go down that route. But yeah, so like, that Wolverine and the X-Men got cut off, but we had that one season. And so if this show doesn't get renewed for a 3rd season, we haven't heard anything yet, but I don't hear anything about the show, you know? If it doesn't get renewed for a 3rd season, then at the very least, I want there to be, like, a unified, full 2 seasons that are just so satisfying and I can always go back to and always be happy about. Just like the Wolverine and the X-Men season that I have, which I wish I'd gotten more, but, like, if you watch that as a season, it's really satisfying. If you're an X-Men fan, watch it. 23 episodes, fantastic. All the X-Men are in it. It's beautifully animated. It's great. It's great. It's fantastic. Like, this episode was fantastic. So, the big thing that happened last time, well, there are a few big things happened last time, but one of the biggest things was the freeing of those criminal mutants, right? The ones that were being held in prisons or whatever. Now, were they actually criminals or not? It's unknown, ultimately, because the justice system is likely not fair towards them. So, who knows? But, like, I thought we were going to have a huge aftermath of that. You know, like, we were going to have a huge sort of moment, or, like, series of moments that kind of, like, was the aftermath, the sort of repercussions of that. We didn't get that all here. There was mention of it, but there wasn't, like, these mutants are out and about and doing things, and, like, that's helping Reva. Like, none of that went on. One of the other major things that happened was that James was captured by the purifiers. And so we had the aftermath of that in this episode, right? Like, I didn't think that would be resolved so quickly, but I'm glad it was. And I'm glad they got him back. But that's what they chose to focus on, like, in this episode. Like, the aftermath of that. Let's get him back. Let's get Thunderbird back. And it'll be a reason to have, like, the whole gang back together. That's really a great way to get this second part of the season going. Like, to see the whole gang together. Like I already mentioned, like, there is an energy and a chemistry, a dynamic that is really infectious about them, and like them all together as a unit, and I feel like the show was missing that, and it needs that. Like, I need that to happen. Like, I've been teased with, like, oh, they can't be together because this or that reason, and like they've been divided, and like there's all these sort of barriers to them being able to get back together. Fine, I've been through that. Now we have them back together again. I understand they have to come apart again, but they have to come back together again. That's all I'm saying. I need that to happen. I need it to happen. Please, writers, make that happen. Okay, so every character had really great moments in this episode. Blink fucking did one of the teleporting tricks that she did in Days of Future Past. Like, she's finally, like, learning to use her powers in that way where she, like, can use her portals to kind of, like, make things go in different directions than they're intended, like she did for that bullet from that purifier that tried to shoot her. Great. Fantastic. Yes, more of that, please. More of Blink, like, actually using her powers in really cool and creative ways. Eclipse. Fucking going all Eclipse with Lorna together when they were creating that diversion in order to allow Clarice and the twins to get James. Yes! This is what I want. This is what I need from the show. Like, I know it's expensive to do, like, big sequences like that, but, like, I don't care. Like, you signed up for an X-Men show with powers. Like, give me X-Men with powers, you know? Make them fucking use their powers in really awesome ways. And that's what I got here. Lorna fucking taking it down with her magnetic powers, looking all cool with her green headpiece, and her and Eclipse kind of talking about it, and Eclipse, like, commenting on that fact that he loves it. That was a great moment, by the way. Great character moment. But then, they use their powers together, and it worked, It was exactly what I want from the show. Like, hey, you have powerful mutants. Use them. I want them used. I want things happening with them. And they that did happen, and it was really satisfying. Really fucking satisfying. James. My God. James got shot like 4 times in the stomach point blank with a shotgun. It was brutal. It was, like, legitimately brutal. And the first time he did it, I was like, okay, well, that's severe. That's severe. And then he did it again. And I was like, shit, that's fucking harsh. And then he did it again. I was like, God damn, that is cutthroat. And then again, and I was like, damn, that is brutal. That is really brutal. It was very brutal. It was not easy to watch that. And I'm happy the show gave me that moment. Like, yeah, gifted, freaking cross the line. Do something fucking crazy. Yeah, I wanna see some crazy stuff. Like, this is like what's going on right now. Look at this. Yes. Anyway, we've seen the show already. I just thought I'd have it in the background. Oh yeah, look at her. Yes, yes. Oh man, they have such great charisma together, and their powers are fantastic. And when they're used in, like, this is fantastic. I was like, yes. Now have Eclipse blow it up. Now have Eclipse blow it up. Yeah, Eclipse blew it up. What's up? Look, explosions, fire. Yeah, Purifiers getting fucked. That's what I want from my X-Men show. This is what I want. Anyway, that was crazy. The shooting of James, that was fucking nuts. But you know what was also great? Jace, the Sentinel Services guy, the Purifier guy. When he fucking came, in that moment when he was shooting James, like, and he was just like, you took everything from me. You took my family. Like, he was just letting loose and just showing us the rage that just drives him. And it was so purified. It was so pure. It was so authentic. It was fantastic. I was like, damn, this is some like real fucking drama. I'm getting some real fucking drama on this show. Like, not some fucking cookie cutter fucking kind of surface level shit. Like, this is some deep ass shit. And these people are fucking selling the fuck out of this scene. And I was loving every fucking moment of it. And I loved every moment of it. And I'm going to love every moment coming up, I think. Because, like, I think they're realizing, shit, like, we can really bring something special to the show. And, oh, here it is. It's happening right here. Right here. Look at that. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that face. Passion, man. Real passion. So good. The reunion at the beginning between the family, between the Strucker family, the mom, the dad, the kids, the mom and Andy. Like, yeah, the mom has been yearning to get her kid back. Amy Acker, Lauren? No, Lauren's the kid. I forget her name. But she, like, it was such an authentically wonderful and endearing moment. You know, like, I really believed it. Like, there's this mother finally getting reunited with her son for so long, and the father as well. And, like, I don't know, there was, like, legitimate empathy there for the characters, and, like, it felt so real, and I loved it. And again, that was one of those moments that we needed the whole season to play out the way it did in order for it to be as special as it was, and it was fantastic. Lorna and Eclipse. The opening scene was that flashback. Now, I don't know how I feel about these flashbacks. They're okay. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. This one was all right. It didn't really sell me on what they were trying to sell me on, which is like how close Lorna and Thunderbird were. But it did kind of provide me a touch of that, so that, you know, when Eclipse tells her, like, you know, this is somebody that you care about and you should help. Like, that would really resonate with her, you know, in the way that first scene would imply. But that wasn't it didn't have that sort of poignancy, but it was good nonetheless. And I liked it, and I liked the Eclipse Lorna reunion, and then I liked when they walked in as well during the whole family reunion, and the dynamic between Blink and Lorna. I loved it. Loved all of that. And then, of course, we had the final scene in which Andy fucking goes full-on villain in front of the family. And it wasn't like he's an asshole, he's a bad guy to be bad. It's like what he's been witnessing, like the fact that these people are monsters, has brought out of him like this urge to fight dirty, essentially. I mean, he's killed, and now he's willing to kill again, is essentially what the scene was telling us. And clearly the parents were just in shock about this. Like, it's hard to see your child, who is once innocent, to become this sort of person. But there's also like, I don't know, I kind of felt like there would be a moment where, like, either the father or the mother would sort of understand. You know? Because clearly Andy said, like, these people are monsters. They are killers. You know, they would do horrible things to people. And you would think that maybe the parent, at least one parent, would be like, well, I kind of get that. But it didn't happen. And then the one thing I did not like was, like, that final moment when Andy left, and then the mom was like, we're going to have to destroy the inner circle to get him back. I was thinking, no, that's not really, I don't think that'll work. I don't think that'll work, because if they destroy the inner circle, then they'll destroy the inner circle, and some of them will probably die. But if they do that, like, they're not really going to be getting to Andy. They're just going to be destroying this group that helped him to sort of realize who he is now, versus, like, trying to, you know, get close to him again and try to kind of guide him in a way that maybe will kind of de-radicalize him a bit. So that just kind of felt weird to me, but whatever. It's part of the narrative. It needs to happen. The family needs to go up against the inner circle. Yeah, I don't like that idea. I don't want the mutants fighting against each other, but they should fight. But, like, I don't know. It shouldn't be so central, you know. Like, look at this. Look at John all torn up. That's some crazy stuff. Anyway, so that was that. And then, yeah, and then we had that final kind of scene with Lorna and Eclipse where they're both kind of like, you know, they're feeling it, right? They're feeling that like closeness that they have, but they're also understanding like they can't be close. And it was really wonderful moment, and the characters played it really well. And then that final kiss from Lorna was fantastic. Like the minute she like stopped kissing him, she's like, "This changes nothing." It's like, I'd be so fucking confused by that. Wouldn't you be so? Yeah, just very confusing. But I loved like like as she walked away, she had this look on her face, which was fantastic. It was kind of like confused, like, what the fuck did I just do? Oh God, what am I doing? Walking away? Oh shit, I should have never done that. It was like all that in one sort of face, and like she emoted that wonderfully. So I was like, all right now, actress Emma DuPont or something. I forget her name. She's doing a really good job with her. I kind of want the show to be this, you know, no inner circle and like just all of them together, but I understand it's not going to be that this season, but I hope it is by the end of the season, and then we get some new threat beyond that, you know, for the third season, if that happens, which I hope it does. I think that pretty much covers all of it. I hope everybody had a happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. It's 2019. It's a new year for all sorts of stuff, including Avengers Infinity War Part 2. Avengers Endgame is what they're calling it. And all sorts of other cool stuff coming out. Another season of Legion is supposedly almost in the can. Hopefully we'll get some more Gifted. We're going to get Dark Phoenix, but hopefully what's most important is and maybe New Mutants. But what's most important is we'll get some announcements by Disney, Marvel, about what they're going to do with the X-Men moving forward. Because that is what I've been fucking living for. And I'm really excited to find out what's going to happen there. Because that is... that's everything I've ever wanted. The X-Men back with Marvel. And like... I'm just so excited by the whole prospect of that I don't know. It's just a lot of crazy, wonderful stuff is yet to come. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video. If you liked the video, click a like. If you didn't like it, click a don't like. If you have some thoughts, throw in some comments. If you think your friends should see this video, share the video. If you want to keep up with videos and you're not subscribed, click on subscribe. Keep up with my latest stuff. I'll be doing reviews of this show all the way through the end of this season. And as always, I want to remind you that if you haven't already, you better put an X in that box because ain't nobody checking me. Take care, folks. Bye-bye. Whoop.